Hi everyone, welcome to Outside Lane, and remember when I said in March that 2025's music was finally showing its trends? Well, so yeah, I guess I was wrong. 2025 has been an absolutely miserable year to follow the charts. After the extremely eventful period in 2024 between April and August, it all went downhill from there, and 2025 feels like a complete dead end. Where the biggest hits from last year are still here, like I'm seriously not joking, the top 3 biggest hits are not only still here, but they're in the top 10. Lose Control, now cemented as the song with the most longevity in the Hot 100, debuted in July of 2023. And it's still in the top 10! But that's not the only thing. The few 2025 hits that we've had have not really been the best. I mean, nothing extremely awful outside of, well, this.
Boy, mad at you.
Don't worry, we're not gonna talk about this one today. Let's leave it for another day. Hopefully not in the near future. To be fair, I'm not really the biggest hater out there, so it's not really that surprising that I didn't find that many hits to be that awful. And, like we've seen in the last few years, we're seeing the rise of earlier songs actually becoming hits just now. Let me give you some examples. Party For You by Charlie XCX, which comes from Charlie's 2020 album How I'm Feeling Now. Headlock by Imogen Heap, a song from 20 years ago from her album Speak For Yourself, only debuted in the Hot 100 in February of this year. Hell, a song from Radiohead's OK Computer, the song being Let Down in fact, not only is doing big on streaming services currently, it's in the bubbling under Hot 100. A song that comes from an album from 1997, or a deep cut from Coldplay's debut album Parachutes from 2000 that has been viral for almost 2 years and already has 1 billion streams, only debuted in the Hot 100 just a couple weeks ago. By the way, not even one of the best deep cuts. Dyer can't even begin to describe how mainstream music is currently. Also, this doesn't have to do with 2025's mainstream music, but there's much bigger shit to worry about. I mean, all over the world there's shit to worry, but for example in the US, pretty much anything that involves the president, his horrendous cabinet, and the fascist group known as ICE. I think that's all I need to say about that government. As you can see, much worse shit is happening in 2025, other than mainstream music having a complete nothing of a year. So it's honestly been very hard to make a video like this because there's just not that much to say. But hey, I somehow managed to get a somewhat interesting week this time. That counts for something, I guess. Anyways, rules are pretty much the same. I'm ranking the Global 200 Top 20 from worst to best. I'm excluding the repeats that I've talked about way too many times, which in this case it's all of these. To be fair, it's just 5 songs, so it's not that much this time. And to end things off, it's all my opinion. Please don't take any of these as gospel. I can always be wrong about something, and opinions are about to change. Any information that I can get wrong or it's outdated, feel free to share in the comments. Anyways, that's the rules. So, let's begin with the ranking, with the only song I actually really dislike from this list. Yeah, just one. Don't worry, the one I really dislike is in fact really bad.
There's nothing colder than your shoulder when you're dragging me along like you do.
You know, when Benson Boone first got his big hit last year with Beautiful Things, which it is still here, I won't deny, I hated it. Not helped with the fact that I actually knew of his name before Beautiful Things, and I didn't really like any of his earlier material either. And with the release of his debut, it also didn't really help matters. I'm still not gonna forgive for the crime that is the song Cry. Just a complete rancid song. I don't know, maybe I thought I was being too harsh with the guy. Yeah, I don't like his music at all, and he has the tendency to oversing to levels that aren't necessary. He's not a bad singer, just far too overblown. And while the whole backflip shtick that he likes to do for some reason is really stupid, hating someone for that is also really stupid. Plus, he was actually showing some signs of improvement. Hell, he even managed to make an honest-to-God good song with Sorry I'm Here for Someone Else. The composition is a bit messy, but it's still pretty solid. Hell, maybe in the near future, I could manage myself to actually tolerate his music. And then Mystical Magical dropped, and all of those hopes were dashed completely. And the thing is, I would still put this above Beautiful Things. It is technically an improvement from that. But there's something about this song that I cannot stand about it. The instrumental isn't terrible, I guess. The groove is bouncy enough, even if the backing vocals just kinda piss me off. The interpolation of Physical by Olivia Newton-John is blatant as hell, but there's like multiple songs with other blatant interpolations of that song that I don't really need to say what it is. But with this song, I think it's one of those situations where once you put every element together, it just becomes completely insufferable. Not help with Benson Boone's overblown vocals that reminds me of Bryn Urie at its worst. I've seen people comparing this song with Harry Styles, and while I see that comparison, and I won't deny that Harry Styles has done some similar overly theatrical stinkers, look at Treat People with Kindness, at least Harry Styles knew how to tone it down when it needs. I mean, at least in most cases. While here, his vocals are so overblown in the chorus that I just want to turn it off instantly. God, I really fucking hate that chorus, especially with the chintzy as hell synths. Also, not to mention the vocal run in the pre-chorus that just gives me a headache instantly. And the lyrics. Oh, those lyrics. Actually, they aren't that bad. A song where he's trying to get a girl to fall in love with him, but she's trying to push him away, but that just makes him like her even more. That could work, I guess. Which already fails for me because I think his presence is completely insufferable in this song, but when it comes to the actual lyrics, there is some highlights, or lowlights in this case, you know. Moonbeam Ice Cream. Really fun stuff there. But at the same time, Benson Boone has made far worse. I mean, Cry is an absolute abomination that few humans could achieve to make, but the song is just so garish to the point where it just gives me a headache. It sounds like a carnival that I want to distance myself as much as possible. So yeah, I don't like this one at all. By the way, I listened to his new album after I wrote this segment. Yes, the one with the American flag. Great timing for that, by the way. It's just incredibly mediocre. Some people will take the hate very far with this one, but there's not that much to be upset about. Mystical Magical is by far the worst song on that album, trust me. Oh god, this one.
She said you don't want this heart, boy, it's already broke. Told me everything she touched just goes up in smoke.
Congrats, Morgan Wallen. You somehow managed to not be at the bottom of this ranking. You must be very happy for yourself. Okay, but seriously, this song has got some massive backlash because, well, just look at the collab. Putting these two in the same song was gonna be grounds for very annoying arguments. Tate McRae and Morgan Wallen are very much the opposite of each other when it comes to their music, but also, as much as it pains me to say, Morgan Wallen is one of, if not the biggest artist in America currently, which technically makes him one of the biggest artists globally. His album was so big in the Hot 100 that 36 of the 37 songs on the album charted, and the only reason that the whole album wasn't in the Hot 100 at the same time was because Lies 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 was already recurrent. Not long ago, I heard a neighbor of mine listening to Cowgirls. I live in Brazil. You know how big you have to be for a country song to be played in Brazil? So a collab with him not only would give her a much wider silent majority audience, but it would get her that #1 hit. Does that make her an insanely racist, conservative MAGA influencer? No. It does make her a sellout though. Well, that's kind of the background of this, and for a very big introduction, you would at least expect this song to be much more interesting than it is, and well, no it isn't. It's not in the slightest. It's a country pop crossover for sure, extremely reminiscent of something like Picture by Kid Rock and Sheryl Crow, and if you couldn't tell, I really don't mean it as a compliment. If I have to give it some praise, I would say that not everything is that bad. I actually kinda like the warm main guitar melody, and the percussion doesn't sound as programmed as other songs of his, but even then, it's not really enough to care for. But where the song really falls apart is their performances. I mean, they don't sound that bad precisely. Morgan Wallen's vocals still feel too touched on, but that's the usual Morgan Wallen voice mixing stimulus package. And Tate McRae's lower register is fine, but not only their chemistry is pretty much none, their verses were not recorded in the same studio, and you can tell. Every time Tate McRae tries to harmonize or fit herself with Morgan Wallen's vocals, it just completely fails to garner any sort of chemistry. And for a song that is trying to build itself in the lyrics of two people that are completely broken from past relationships and get to their own distant relationship where they don't want anything much deeper due to that similar baggage. I mean, I guess that awkwardness makes some sense, but come on, you at least have to have some sort of chemistry, or at least some interesting gimmick, which we've already mentioned with this that there is none. I mean, the lyrics aren't terrible, but it all just leads to this completely miserable sludge of bad feelings. Honestly, I feel like this is probably gonna sour on me even further when the year progresses, but for now, it's just bottom of the meh tier. It's got a competent instrumental at least, even if I said the same thing for I'm the Problem, and now that's close from being my worst hit of the year, so again, it could shrink on me, but as of now, it's just a completely boring pop country crossover that in a year or two, I don't think any of the fan bases would care to come back to. Congrats on your #1 hit tape, McRae, I guess.
You're taking me out of the ordinary. I want you laying me down till we're dead and buried.
So, our current #1 and seems to be the biggest new hit of this year by a landslide so far, which also just makes me question, out of all songs, why this precisely? I mean, on one hand, there's been a massive revival for the whole 2010s indie folk sound, or more well known by the derogatory term stomp and clap, Noah Kahan being the biggest example, and 2025 has been an incredibly slow year, so I guess something has to fill the gaps. But at the same time, I'm still baffled that this song became this big. I mean, when you compare it to something like Stick Season by Noah Kahan or even Sailor Song by Gigi Perez, it doesn't really feel that folk. Yeah, there's a pleasant enough guitar line, but still feels very simple. The melodies aren't really that fleshed out. There's a gospel choir, but it just doesn't have that much presence, even if they have more presence than Alex Warren, that's for sure. Yeah, he's a competent singer, but not an interesting one. The bombast of the final chorus with the drums zipping up that climax is pretty solid, I guess. The chorus is somewhat catchy, but it also doesn't leave that much of a presence. And the lyrics, I'm just gonna be honest, they're kind of amateurish. A love song inspired in his wedding with blatant Christian references that are very basic. Honestly, the best thing I can describe this song is just it leaves no presence whatsoever. It's a very nothing song, just completely white noise. But also, I struggle to dislike it that much because that's kinda all it is. I don't really agree with the whole absence of good when it comes to music. For me to get on my bad side, it really has to give me some negative emotions, or its mediocrity is so fucking dreary that it's just completely unpleasant. While this, I mean, yeah, it's completely mediocre, but it just goes one ear and out the other. The only interesting thing about this song is not even the song itself. It's Alex Warren, who was actually part of the Hype House. Yeah, no joke. So the biggest breakthrough of this year comes from the guy who was actually part of the Hype House. Recession indicator. Although Addison Rae was also part of the Hype House at some point, and now she's one of the most hyped pop singers currently. No pun intended. So I guess I'm not one to judge. Anyways, his song with Jelly Roll is better. I know that sounds weird to say, but trust me, it's a full-on indie-tronica song, you know, indie Avicii way, that actually kinda works and has legit some pretty strong lyrics. It's not amazing, but trust me, it's a much better song. Unlike this that is just, well, a pile of nothing.
I really thought I made up my mind. Hop in the car and put it in drive.
And speaking of K-pop solo acts, the members of BTS are actually still doing pretty well. So all of the members have got out of mandatory service in South Korea, so that means that they actually can come back as a group, and they have already revealed that they will come back in 2026. But while that isn't happening, their solo stuff is still out. And in this case, we're gonna talk about Jin, who I don't think I've ever talked about on this channel, but I guess he's fine. Never really stood out to me in the group that much. I actually remember liking a song from him back in 2022. It was The Astronaut, a song that was co-written by Chris Martin of Coldplay, and boy, you can tell. But I've always been a big fan of these big-sounding spacey synth-pop songs, which is why I also never really disliked Music of the Spheres. And I really liked that one. And for this song, Well, it's not that. Instead, it's just kind of a standard pop song, and not exactly a great one. There's a decent groove there, it's pretty well produced, and Jin is a pretty good singer, sure, but I'm just not getting anything else from this. As well produced as it is, there's not really that many distinctive qualities about it outside of a solid bass line. Maybe a faster tempo could have made this more interesting, and the lyrics are kinda what you expect. A relationship that is very much in the midst of a collapse, where he wishes that she would just end it already and hate him instead of stringing him along. Not bad per se, it could be interesting, but there's just not that much to it. It's very by the numbers. Yeah, this one just doesn't really give me that much to say. I mean, if it makes the armies happy, I guess that's what matters, but I wanted something more like The Astronaut, you know? But even removing my personal taste out of the question, it's just not really that interesting. It's average, I guess.
Eres la niña en mis ojos tú, eres todo lo que quiero yo. Una cerveza para calmar la sed, no mejor.
This one caught my attention for a couple reasons, so stick with me. So, W Sound is a music project by Colombian YouTuber and kick streamer West Cole, which this project includes multiple other Colombian artists, which brings us to the other people in this song. BL, who's been having a pretty strong surge over the last few months globally, and Ovi on the drums, who's a very prolific producer who's worked with multiple Latin artists, not just in Colombia. He's also the main collaborator for West Cole in this project. Another thing that I've also noticed about this is how controversial West Cole is, although that comes with the kick streamer package, you know? Being the most followed kick streamer, in fact. He even had a beef with Aiden Ross for some reason, trash meets garbage I guess, and has collaborated on Kick with Argentine football player Sergio Agüero. Don't ask me why. Other moments of his are being incredibly misogynistic after going to a gaming convention in El Salvador, which after he left, he got banned from entering the country, and homophobic statements as well, which he got sued and lost. So yeah, pretty fun character we have here. So I'll just say that I was not very excited for this song, knowing the reputation of one of the people surrounding it. Although yes, we're not talking about the person, we're talking about the music, but I had to give some background. So how's the song? Well, it's fine, I guess. It's just kind of a standard Latin pop song. What you see is what you get. The key melody is simple, but fine enough. The percussion is pretty smooth, and the addition of flutes is pretty nice. Ovi on the drums brings a pretty decent instrumental to the table. I'm just not getting that much from BL as a singer. I mean, at least on this song. He has another song with Ovi on the drums called Mi Jefe, where he sounds much better. Also, it works better because the instrumental feels a lot more dynamic. I do recommend checking that one out. It's pretty solid. I mean, he's not bad, he's just not very interesting here. His auto-tuned vocals are just not clicking with me here, which then leads me to talk about West Cole, and the funny thing about him is that he doesn't do a lot on this. Ovi on the drums is the only producer here, and so is for the rest of the other W Sound songs. BL is the only one credited for vocals, and he's not credited as a songwriter either. So my guess is that he's probably just a music curator, or the person that selects the people to be part of their music. Imagine someone like DJ Khaled. That's honestly my guess, because if you look at the credits of the song, it doesn't really seem like he does much. Anyways, the lyrics do seem like your standard hookup song, nothing more, nothing less. So yeah, it's honestly just a fine song. There ain't that much to it outside of the guy that curated this. This is just passable, I guess.
What you do to get you off? Taking down her hair like, oh my god. Taking off your shirt, I did that once.
Okay, as I said, this list does have some repeats, and I'll be talking about the ones I haven't talked about yet in more details, so I'm gonna be brief with these segments, unless I have something new to talk about, which in this case, I really don't. But honestly, I still think this has some decent stuff about it. The composition is fine, the hook is somewhat sticky, Gracie Abrams is still a very frail singer that can't really sell any of the urgency of the content, even if her lyricism isn't really that bad. It feels very Midnight / The Tortured Poets Department Taylor Swift, and honestly, not even one of the better songs from either of them. It's fine, far from the worst she's ever made, but also not really that interesting.
Mi niña, alista tu maleta ahorita. Quiero que te pongas bonita.
I guess it's been a while since I've talked about regional Mexican music in this channel. Last time was a year ago with La Diabla by Javi, which I found to be pretty okay, but that was one of the latest biggest hits of the genre. A lot of them have been big in the global charts, but in the US, they mostly stay below the top 50. Some go above that and even get to the top 50 for a couple weeks, but don't go beyond that. Corridos tumbados as a genre, or narco corridos if you want to be more specific, has been into some controversies, most of them about cultural elements surrounding the genre that I'll probably never be able to explain it that well because I'm not Mexican. But there's plenty of articles talking about those controversies, so if you want, I can put some of those articles in the description below. Again, it's a pretty controversial topic that I'm not gonna get into because I don't think I'm qualified to talk about it, but I think you should look up on your own. Anyways, one of the acts that managed to be one of the more relevant of the genre had to be Fuerza Reída, getting multiple songs in the Hot 100 just this year, and with their last album doing some pretty solid numbers. Now to be fair, when it comes to the regional Mexican artists I have heard, Fuerza Reída is probably one of the ones I've liked the least. But you know what? Maybe the song could be one I'm fine with. By the way, don't take my opinion as gospel. Again, I'm not the most qualified when it comes to the genre. I'm just giving my opinion on it. Don't take it that serious. And honestly, yeah, it's pretty okay. I'll say that the vocal sample of Don't Say a Word by Ellie Goulding was a pretty interesting touch, and it actually leads to a pretty hypnotic and mysterious atmosphere. Outside of that, it's mostly the usual from what I've heard of the genre. The free 4-time signature, the fast guitars, the horns, the slap bass, and some usage of synths that I found pretty interesting. Not the best well mixed, but honestly, I have heard worse. And again, there's some interesting stuff about the instrumental that I do like. Jesus Ortiz Pasa's vocals aren't really my thing, especially when it comes to some of the inflections, but nothing really that bad, as the lyrics are the usual love song where he gets this girl into expensive trips and also lots of sex, also with tons of horn dog energy. You can maybe think that some of the lyrics are a bit iffy when you translate it, but honestly, I feel like I've heard much worse, and I'll give it this. It's probably one of the Fuerza Reída songs I've liked the most. There's aspects of the composition that I do really like. So yeah, it's pretty okay. In a year like this, I'll take it.
The lights, your face, your eyes exploding like fireworks in.
Honestly, I don't know if putting this song here will be controversial or not. I might be walking on eggshells, but honestly, I do feel kinda bad for Ed Sheeran. He's gotten a lot of bad faith discourse for being very overexposed, especially on the radio. Although to be fair, if I had to hear Perfect constantly on the Target night shift, I would probably lose my mind as well. But I do think a lot of people have exaggerated on the hate, never really got the hate for that one. Thankfully, the hate started dissipating by 2023 with the release of Subtract, but also because his chart stability started disappearing as well. He released another album that year that almost no one noticed, but this year, he is back, and while none of the singles have come close to his peak, they aren't doing that bad either. I actually do like the first two singles, those being Azizam and Old Phone, so hopefully maybe this would have been the same case, and well, I'm not sure. So for Azizam, it's a pop song that has Persian influences. Hell, the song's title in Persian translates to My Beloved, and honestly, the mix of cultures actually works to its advantage. Now for Sapphire, he decided to use Punjabi influences, from the instruments usage, especially in the percussion line, and even bringing Indian superstar singer Arijit Singh, which I do respect Ed Sheeran for, but for as much as I can respect this song, I just don't think it works as well as it does with Azizam. Now, there's good stuff about it, the groove is pretty solid, the song sounds pretty big, especially with the last chorus exploding with the piano keys and the backing vocals. The Punjabi elements are pretty well implemented, and it mixes his own pop sound pretty well. Ed Sheeran has always been pretty good at finding extremely sticky hooks, and Ed Sheeran is legitimately trying his hardest to make it work, but there's just something about it that just doesn't click. I mean, if I had to give a comparison, Azizam had a fast and pulsating beat that was legit a ton of fun, while Sapphire just feels more sludgy and mid-tempo, even if for the latter, it was probably the intention, but it just doesn't really appeal to me that much, and that's a shame because the lyrics are genuinely sweet. As for a straightforward love song, where this person's presence is so radiant in his life that it's comparable to, well, a Sapphire. Say what you want, but he clearly did his homework with this, which is why it sucks that I don't really love this song. I'm willing to accept that I'm not the demographic for this song, and anyone who likes it, more power to you, but for how much effort Ed Sheeran put into this song, unfortunately, I'm not really there with this one. It's okay, decent even, I just kinda wish I liked it more.
I wanna let my head down while I'm staring down your face, wanna go till lights out.
And for a Tate McRae song that is not controversial at all, thank God, surprisingly, it doesn't come from her last album, which wasn't really that interesting outside of Sports Car, which, to be fair, it's a pretty damn great song. This song is actually for the soundtrack of the F1 movie, which by the time I'm recording this video, it's already on theaters. And, I mean, it's a decent pop song. It's kind of a weird one too, as the beat with the heavy percussion, the faded cloud of synths, the bass touches, and that drop with the chipmunk vocals, it feels like a dance song that has some touches of Afrobeat. Honestly, it feels like something Amaarae would hop on, and that's a compliment on my books. I like Amarae's music, but also there's just something that just doesn't really click with me. As much as the beat is pretty interesting, it just doesn't really have that strong of a groove, at least to me, and I've never really been that interested in Tate McRae as a performer, and this isn't really changing that. Apparently Tyler was supposed to be on the song as a feature, and I would honestly love to hear that because I do seriously like her music, and it would make the song a lot more interesting. It's a song that demands your attention, especially with the lyrics of, well, to keep watching her, as she takes action to conquer this person's attention. I mean, that could work, but because again, I never really cared that much for Tate McRae as a performer, I just think he falls a bit short for me. If you are a Tate McRae fan, this will probably get you satisfied. It is bound to go off in the right places, but I just think it's okay. I mean, it is better than the Morgan Wallen collab, that's for sure, although that's not really a high bar.
And if you hear this sound, then go and bend your back, go and bend your knees, baby, shake it to the max. DJ, please turn up the bass to the max.
Oh, would you look at that? We now have an actual dancehall hit. That's pretty cool. I'm surprisingly aware of some of the people on this song, with Molly, Ghanaian American singer, because she was in a pretty solid minor hit from 2020, Sad Girls Love Money, which also had Amaarae in it, and had a remix with Kali Uchis, which was the thing that made the song go viral, which again just makes me think that I want another Amaarae hit. Can we please give her something, I don't know, Angels in Tibet or Disguise? Now for Skillabang, Jamaican dancehall artist, I'm aware of him because he has been a common collaborator when other artists outside of the genre wanted to get into Afrobeat or dancehall, especially Nicki Minaj. And then for Shansi, who was also Jamaican, I've only heard of her because of some of her collaborations, mostly Megan Thee Stallion, Calvin Harris, and the Chainsmokers. You know what? I won't complain. Get the bag, I guess. And for Silent Addy, Jamaican producer who did in fact produce the song, was the only one I was not aware of. The original from last year only included Molly and Silent Addy, but it's been the remix with Skillabang and Shansi that has been receiving traction. And again, that's pretty cool to see. Now for the song itself, here's the thing, I'm not very familiar with the dancehall genre, so because of that, and also because I'm white, you can take my opinion with a grain of salt. But you know what? I think it's pretty decent. A minimalist beat with a nice flute melody, the bass touches, and the snares and kicks that honestly would go off in the right places. Put this in a sound system in a party and it will probably go off, which has also helped with the performances, with both Molly and especially Shansi elevating the energy of the beat. Like seriously, Shansi's confidence in this song is just really infectious, especially for an ass-shaking anthem where both of them just want to have fun and be hot in this party. Skillabang doesn't bring that much to the table as they both do in my opinion, but he still sounds credible enough for his verse. But that's kinda where it ends for me. It's not exactly what I'm into, so honestly I might just have to listen to more of the genre for this to grow on me. But hey, it's still pretty decent for what it is. Honestly, I kinda wish I had more to say about it because it's very cool to see this doing very well worldwide. Obviously, my opinion here shouldn't be the most important, so as much as I think that this is just decent, it absolutely deserves its place in the mainstream, especially when the hits of 2025 are so vacant. Well, this is a big one.
You said your phone was broken, just forgot to charge it. Oh, outfit you're wearing, God, I hope it's ironic.
So in a surprising turn of events, I guess we're gonna get a new Sabrina Carpenter album in 2 months, when the last album was almost a year ago and Espresso is still in the Hot 100. Although that's more of the fault that 2025 has been a slow year, but I've said that far too many times. And well, it has already sparked a slew of discourse that already feels annoying, especially because of this album cover which... oh god, do I really need to say why this would spark discourse? I mean, you know exactly what kind of people will be against this. Now, to be fair, I don't really care what she's doing here. It's pretty tongue-in-cheek and provocative, not exactly that transgressive, but it doesn't really need to be. It got people talking, especially some people moralizing it to pretty insane levels. There's much worse shit out there. If you think this cover is the devil, and she's using traditionally conservative stereotypes to indoctrinate younger women, please go outside. Also, this kind of shtick of her being extremely hypersexual has always been there. Now, if you like that kind of shtick or not, that is subjective, but like, it's always been there. It's a marketing strategy that is doing pretty well for her. Anyways, the promoting of this era has been messy, but I mean, that's kinda what you expect with Sabrina Carpenter these days. But hey, with this new era, maybe we can start on the high notes. And this is where I get in the crossroads because I wanna like this one a lot more than I do, but there's just something about it that doesn't work for me. So first of all, it's a pop song with some touches of country, which isn't really a bad thing. Many pop stars have done that recently. The Giver by Chappell Roan is one example. Not one of her better songs, but it did deserve better. It's still pretty good. There's some pretty nice elements instrumental-wise, the bright synth melody, the banjo riff in the post-chorus, and some pretty good galloping percussion in the chorus. They are pretty welcome, but the production is what is at fault, as many of these elements just don't feel very organized, making the mix feel very cluttered and like the instruments are trying to fight for air. So really, it's just a bit of a mess. Maybe a mess you can ignore, but still a mess. Even if Sabrina has grown to have her own identity. As per the lyrics, honestly, I'm just gonna go with the case of take it as you will. People are gonna have different perspectives and that's fine. From my point, it seems to be the usual shtick, where she gets tangled up with men who are too immature to be in a relationship, but she can't seem to get away from them because that's the kind of man she likes, and they wind up choosing her. Now, you could say a lot of things about the lyrics, and in my case, I don't think I will because as much as you can say a lot of things, if this is what she wants or what her character wants, that's her judgment. It's not my place. Although I'm not exactly that much of a fan of a line like, I like my man all incompetent. It does feel like she's trying to balance the theme of the song between what's ironic and what's sincere, but honestly, I don't really have that many strong opinions about it outside of that one line. It kinda reminds me of a sequel to Please Please Please. Hell, they even have Jack Antonoff to produce this as well. Just much messier this time. Either way, I think I need time with this one. There's pieces about it that works for me. Again, as much as the production is messy, I do like a lot of elements from the instrumental, and the hook is incredibly sticky, but I'm just not quite there yet.
It's whatever you like. Turn this opposite into a club. I'm talking.
Now for the in fact good songs, yeah, I still think this is cute. A pretty nice and glossy early 2010s pop throwback that it's not exactly that deep, but it's still pretty fun. Bruno Mars doesn't exactly do that much here, but it does sound like he's having fun with this. And his charisma does help to make it a lot more entertaining. Plus, it's insanely catchy. So yeah, still a pretty solid pop collab. I hope you're able to pay your gambling debts, Bruno Mars. By the way, this is a joke. I legit have no idea if those debts are real or not. It's just a rumor.
You had a dream, you wanted better. You were sick of all the holes in your sweater.
Okay, now this is an interesting breakthrough. So for those who are not aware, this is Somber. Pretty lame name, but okay. He's an artist from New York, and he broke through this year with 2 songs. First with Back to Friends, which we will get to soon, and then Undressed, which eventually surpassed Back to Friends as the most popular. Now sadly, I don't think this one is as good as Back to Friends, but I still enjoy it. As instrumental-wise, it's an indie pop rock track with a very sticky guitar riff, a pretty solid bass line, and while Somber is not exactly the greatest singer, he's still pretty decent. I really like the backing vocals that support support him on the song, as it gives a bigger scope to the mix, and the song has a pretty good sense of scale, as it just becomes bigger to match the urgency of the lyrics. And with a very sticky chorus and a massive bridge that builds itself into a massive crescendo, you got a pretty strong composition. It feels like a throwback to the early 2010s indie pop of the time. Now, where I might take a slight issue might be with the lyrics, as it dives into his insecurity of moving on from a breakup, as he sees that she's clearly moving on to someone new. Obviously, nothing wrong with that, but as you get some of the more over-exaggerated lines on the song, as to probably show the desperation of not wanting to move on, it loses me a little bit. Not enough to not make me not like the song, but enough to make me raise an eyebrow. But hey, it's still a pretty solid pop song by an artist that does have the chance to become big. He has a better song coming in a bit, but I'll embrace this one as well.
Una triple lavada pa' loquear, pa'l sube bajo una pluma de wax, un whisky del año de tu papá.
And for the second and last regional Mexican song, this one is a fascinating case. So unlike Fuerza Reída, I actually wasn't aware of Esau Ortiz, but he's also one of the newer artists to blow up in the scene, most specifically with the song that got viral on TikTok, which even got him a remix with other big names of the scene, like Luis Eric Enriquez and Oscar Maidon. So I wanted to see the buzz for this one, and would you look at that, I actually like this one. The interesting thing about this one is that it's not as much as corridos tumbados as you expect. Yeah, some elements of the genre are there, the horns and choppy guitars are still here, but they're not as present, which isn't really a bad thing that they're present, but in this case, it balances out the mix pretty well. Plus with the fat bass line and the live drums that give it a damn good groove, and Esau Ortiz's vocals do sound a bit nasal at first, but once he gets into a faster flow for the verses, it's actually pretty credible. Plus his belting in the first post-chorus is really great, which is matched with the strings that sound incredible. And all of this helps for a song that is just about having a fun vacation. If I have a nitpick, it would be that the metallic synth that interpolates that Arabian riff in the outro just sounds kinda corny and not really good. But honestly, that's the only thing I don't like about the song, because outside of it, yeah, this is a ton of fun. I don't know for how long this one will be here as a big hit, but I endorse it. Check this one out.
Debí tirar más fotos de cuando te tuve. Debí darte más besos y abrazos.
Well, there's still some remains of the Bad Bunny album bomb from January here. In this case, just the title track, which thankfully, it is still a good song, as he uses of the plena genre to create a smooth but melancholic instrumental that matches pretty well with the themes of his post-breakup relationship and the memories he cherishes from it, as well as the what-ifs of the relationship, what he would have done if he was still with her. It's clearly a not over you song, but that is the point, and every piece of the song works in its favor. Not my favorite from the album, I do prefer other hits from the album like Baile Inolvidable or Nueva Yol, which the latter got a music video which criticizes all of the inhumane deportations that America is doing, but if this is the song that will represent the album in the coming future, I'm fine with it. It's a good song.
Your loving on me makes me feel special. No.
You know, when I first saw this song debuting in the UK a few months ago, I thought this was gonna be another dance remix of Show Me Love by Robin S, and I was preparing myself for the worst, but thankfully, it isn't. Far from it actually. So Wiz the MC is a South African singer and rapper who's now based in Germany. He's been around since the late 2010s, but really has gotten his breakthrough in the 2020s. Now for Bees and Honey, I honestly didn't really find anything about them outside of them being a producer collective based in Berlin and London, I think. But this is both of them's first ever major breakthrough worldwide, which started picking up traction during the spring of this year through TikTok, and later would get a remix with Tyla to make it even bigger. And now it is here, and honestly, it's a damn good one, as it's kind of an amapiano song mixed with more pop elements, as you have that pretty smooth synth badline for the main melody, a pretty strong groove coming from the bass line and the shuffling percussion, and Wiz the MC being a pretty credible presence, as his more soulful vocals just match very well with the smooth atmosphere, especially for a very standard hookup song. Hell, I even like that breakdown in the post-chorus, as it shows its more electronic elements. It makes sense why the song is getting big in the summer. I mean summer in the northern hemisphere. I'm in the southern hemisphere, which means it's winter, okay? Because it reminds me of the tropical house trend of the mid-2010s, especially especially at its peak in 2016. And while there's a lot of aspects from 2016 I do not want to bring back, I'm fine with the sound getting a bit of a revival. It's a simple song, but honestly, it's still a pretty fun one. I'll take it.
Touch my body tender, 'cause a feeling makes me weak.
Okay, now this is the somber song I do really like, and honestly, there ain't that much to it outside of it just being a slapper. Having probably one of the most unique instrumentals I've seen in a pop song in a while, as the set of glimmery keyboards, the great groove, the slightly dissonant guitar melody, and the shuffling percussion, alongside with Somber's cavernous vocals, which is filled with reverb, helps to create this massive and borderline psychedelic atmosphere that is just perfect. And once the vocals are multi-layered in the chorus, oh my god, it's just absolutely fantastic. And again, just like Undressed, it has such a great sense of scale, as that bridge just amps the bigness to 100, especially with the usage of strings, as the lyrics divulge into how they can go back to being friends after hooking up with this woman. A moment that completely changed their relationship, how can it go back to square one? It's still a bit petulant at points, especially in the bridge where that bigness compared with the petulance is just pretty funny, but again, not really that detrimental, especially when the instrumental kicks this much ass. So yeah, this is just a pretty damn great pop rock banger. I might need to see what Somber is gonna do next, because if this and Undressed are signs of things to come, I'm intrigued. If there's a song I actually have hopes to save this year's mainstream music, it is this one, alongside with...
See right now, I need you, I'll meet you somewhere now. You up now, I see you, I get you.
God, it's good to be early to a song that subsequently becomes a big hit, which is exactly what happened to me with this. So for those who aren't aware, Raven Lenae is a Chicago-based R&B singer who's been making music since the late 2010s, but I've become aware of her in 2022 with her debut album Hypnose, which honestly I didn't really love, but there were some highlights for sure. For example, Skin Tight with Steve Lacy is pretty great. Then 2 years later, she proceeded to release her sophomore album Bird's Eye, with this being one of the lead singles. Then in 2025, the song started becoming viral on TikTok, which led to becoming one of the biggest and one of the few, let's face it, new hits of this year. And you know what? I'm so happy with this one, because it's really damn great. I fell in love with it ever since I listened to it last year, as you got that smoky bass line accompanied with the main synth melody, the light percussion, the guitar touches, and Raven Lenae's understated vocals. Sometimes her tone can get a bit more to the squeaky side, which I'm not exactly a fan of, but she sounds great here, as well as with the backing vocals that support her very well. And with that psychedelic synth in the bridge that I absolutely love, yeah, I was on board with this since the beginning. It's a slow burn, sure, but the instrumental has such a grungy energy to it that is so welcome. And the themes of the song are pretty solid too, as she explores a relationship where she's in the dilemma of not being sure if she's in love with this person or just being infatuation. It is messy for her. On one hand, she wants to be left alone, but on the other, she desperately needs this person's affection, especially when you don't know if the person you're with actually loves you or is just stringing you along. The back and forth in the lyrics are pretty well conceived, as it really amps up the indecisiveness of the song. If you look at the lyrics itself, it was written in a way that honestly doesn't really shock you that it got this big, but honestly, that's not really that much of an issue. I've liked this song since I heard it in 2024, and seeing that it's getting viral, especially in a year as dead as this, that truly makes me happy. This is truly a pretty damn great song. I don't know if Raven Lenae hit lightning in the bottle with this one, or if it means that she's gonna become a fully mainstream artist, but I hope it's the latter. She's pretty talented and you should check her music out, especially Bird's Eye, Where Love Me Not comes from.
Cause I'm too messy, and then I'm too fucking clean. You told me get a job and you asked.
Well, the last two songs are repeats, and honestly, I don't have that much to say about them, so I'll keep it short. First with one that has become a divisive one, surprisingly. Now, obviously, opinions will be different, and if you don't like this one, that's fine. Anyways, I still love this one. It's a slow burn song with a pretty great groove that relies on its rage of their lover not being able to accept her in the way she is, where with every contradictory statement, it helps into showing how much their lover just don't understand them. Loli Young's vocals vocals will not be for everyone, but if we keep working to building that rage that progressively gets bigger throughout the song, especially with that mellow guitar solo before the last chorus. So yeah, I still think it's pretty great, and one that surprisingly had some staying power for me. Again, won't be for everyone, but I'm happy to embrace it.
If it was up to me, I wouldn't give it nobody's no sympathy. I'll take away the pain.
And for the other repeats, well, I don't think most people will be surprised that this is at the top of this ranking. An absolutely phenomenal R&B duet that I never really thought Kendrick had in it. He's had R&B cuts before, but none as fantastic as this one, where the chemistry is off the roof, the beat is just stellar, and the sample choice feels so inspired that you can truly feel the romance in the song. I'm happy that it managed to get at number 1 at some point, even if it feels crazy that it's technically Kendrick's longest number 1 hit ever. This will probably be on my best hits list this year, although with how this year is going, that doesn't sound that much like a high bar, but Kendrick and SZA truly made magic with this. Well, that was the ranking. Usually I do some sort of small ranking or I give thoughts about like any of the songs that are making the year-end list at this point, but honestly, I'm not really that inspired currently, so there won't be any of those. Also because there isn't that many big hits that I love that are on the global or Hot 100 charts, I'm not gonna give recommendations to those. Instead, I'm just gonna put a compilation of some of my favorite songs of this year and I'll call it a day. Still, there's some pretty great songs here, so enjoy!
The pressure right from under my sweater, the trumpet on the horns, the drummer coming, the drummer coming. They follow me home, fuck what you heard. You wanna take what I own, bitches getting burned.
Let's pretend it's not the end of the road.
If I could just pay my rent by Tuesday, I bet I'd be rich by April Fool's Day. The moon's wide awake with a smile on his face.
Who am I if not mama's gun? Pop you in the lip once your mouth decided wanna run. Flowers grew out of the plots, limited by the runs, but the joy in the
I love you, swimming upstream in a flash flood, wondering when I'm gonna drown.
I'll wait for you to leave the altar room, 'cause I could've picked something easier.
This is culturally inappropriate.
So be it, so be it. Smoke.
Well, that was all. Honestly, this was a very hard video to make, especially because, well, mainstream music is just completely empty currently. There's literally nothing going on. But hey, I managed to find somewhat of an interesting week to talk about. Outside of that, I'm planning of doing some other projects soon. Please vote for the episode 3 of Songs I Love poll. I know the series hasn't been getting that many views, but it's a series I actually love to make, and I'm really proud of it, so if you could give your votes or just support any of the videos, that would help a lot. Also, there might be a video about every movie I've watched in May, which is my birthday month. That is coming soon, or that is already out before this video, so you should check that out too. And outside of that, well, that's kind of it. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on my social media, share this video, and throw in a comment about any of the songs on this video, or maybe just about this video. And that's it. I hope I see y'all soon.